right out. Hey, what happened?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the program. My name is Dean. Busy day today. Busy day. Brought to you by our friends at Easy Auto Financial. Easy Auto Financial is where you go get a car and financing and all that stuff. If you're having a problem with it, getting a car, credit's bad, Easy Auto Financial.ca. Don't charge you for a thing. No obligation either. Also, our friends at Ed's Fine Imports is Gitch. I wear them. You can too. Go to edsfineimports.com. Buy a pair today. They'll give you a free pair when you use Gitch3. That is your promo code. And, of course, domination.com. AI for people that love to produce content. Welcome to the program, everybody. We'll start with James D. Fiore, Blackballed the podcast. He's at James D. Fiore on Twitter, at Ryan Lindley from the Sheeple Shepherd podcast, at Ryan Lindley on Twitter, at Lachlan Cross on Twitter, and he's part of this podcast, host of the morning show on 95.7 Cruise FM in Edmonton, the host of the Locker Room, and back by popular demand. Actually, we asked him like 400 times, and this was like the closest we could get him. And he was just too busy saving lives. Please welcome family physician out of London, Ontario, Dr. Mario Elia, ladies and gentlemen. Mario Elia. There we go.
It's good to have another doctor on the pod. Thank you.
What do you mean?
Good to be back.
What do you mean? Another doctor? He's the only doctor on the pod. What are you talking about?
On my scene card.
Oh.
It says I'm a doctor. Thanks for laughing.
Good to be back. Sorry I was gone for so long, guys. But,
Problem.
got a 4-month-old.
Yeah.
The baby's not sleeping for as long stretches as previous shows, so I couldn't just rock her to sleep for an hour while I talk to you guys. But today's an important day to talk about COVID. It got to the point, and I'm seeing the numbers and seeing what's going on, and I thought we need a bit of a wake-up call in Ontario. We had a good summer. And we had a good start to the fall. I had a good time. Hope you guys had a good time too. But I think things aren't going in the greatest of directions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we wanted to have you on previously, and I know you've been terrific. Like I think the last couple of podcasts we did with you did with your then 2 or 3 month old, literally on your lap like this for an hour and a half because you take the shit seriously, and we love the fact you're doing. I do want to ask you. How many years of education does it take you to become a board certified physician? Like how many years total education, residency, from the time that you're done high school to the time that you walk into a clinic? How many years?
So the average family physician, it's going to be 10 years.
10 years.
So it's
Jesus.
4 years undergrad, 4 years med school.
Yeah.
2 years family medicine. Mm-hmm. They used to take undergrad after 3 years. Now it's not. It's 4.
Did doctors hate Doogie Howser because of that? You know,
I love Doogie Howser.
Me too. I love Doogie.
I love Doogie. A lot of House is a dick because no one knows that much stuff. Like no one does all that stuff that he does. So he's just
everything was Cushing's.
Yeah.
Dr. Huxtable was pretty. Oh wait, never mind. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh.
But 10 years. So 10 years. All told, that's just education on top of, your undergrad, on top of high school. I'm thinking like, from high school, it's got to be like 10 to 15 years all told, right? When you get...
Well, some surgeons, yeah.
Some surgeons, yeah, depending on your specialty,
even
right?
Longer. Yeah.
So let me ask you something. When you get a truck driver that tweets you and says... At Super Mario Elia, that's your handle, by the way, on Twitter. I don't know if you know that. You don't know what you're talking about. How does that feel? Like when you're going, hey, guys, go get vaccinated. Because we're going to have a great, healthy, robust conversation about the time we're in and all that. I just wanted to kind of start there. Like, because I've seen Nurse Kat, who we have. She's a 20-year nurse. I've seen doctor after doctor, whether it's Dr. Vivian Stamatopoulos or like legitimate MDs, immunologists, Dr. Fisman, Imgrind, he's not a doctor, but he's a biostatistician, Dr. Sharkawi, who just followed me the other day, Dr. Michael Warner, Dr. Isaac Bogash. I was going through all the replies to tweets because we were kind of all tweeting each other this weekend about, mutual responsibility. And all I saw was, you don't know what you're talking about, Dr. Fisman. That was from a guy named Soupy969. And then another one towards Dr. Bogash. It was like, go F yourself, you moron. That was from Big Tits, No Ass 62. No word of a lie. And I went through the profile, and the guy's, quote, been trucking since the 90s. So
The
I
name's
just
a parent's
wanted,
fault,
and
though.
it is.
Like,
It is like this avalanche of stupidity, and someone who has dedicated his life to education, and for others, healthcare. Representatively speaking, how does, like, when you see that stuff, do you just completely disregard it at this point, or are you just getting fucking tired of it?
Well, I've been tired of it for well over a year. But I'm impressed by the overconfidence, though. It's impressive that, like, when we have a legal question, or I need a plumber, or my shingles need a replacement, I don't know what the frig I'm doing, right? And I don't get up on the roof and question the guy shingling my house and question, did you nail that in properly? Is that done? It should be over a little more. Are you sure you didn't check that hole? Of course he did, because that's his freaking job, right? But the idea that and this is partly just the pandemic and everyone being so affected by this, and everyone being so immersed in the day-to-day information coming out and thinking they have an educated opinion on it. Again, an impressive amount of overconfident people who really have no business being overconfident. There's I've heard through the whole pandemic jokes about people who didn't necessarily pass high school science who now have fairly strong opinions on Facebook. I hadn't necessarily seen that up until this last week on my own Facebook page with someone I literally tutored in high school science, who is now pushing back on literally everything I'm saying about COVID and questioning the vaccine. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? I know what your level of scientific literacy is. I know what it is because
you're
we
an
lived this
idiot
together in high school.
Yeah.
And now you're the expert. And but the problem is they're when they're at that point, right, that they're literally questioning someone that they know personally who's a physician.
Yeah.
And they know me personally, right? I'm not bullshitting them on vaccines or how serious this is. Like they know I have no hidden agenda here, and they still don't believe me, and they still don't believe it.
Yeah.
You're not like you can't chisel away that level of motivated reasoning here.
I think there is a case to be made for this has always been around. This is just another level of it, right? Like you brought up the shingles thing, right? I made the mistake years ago of saying on my radio show that I needed to find somebody to replace the shingles on my roof. And a friend of mine who, by the way, anti-vaxxer, anti-masker, called me on my cell and went, no, don't hire anybody. I can do this. We'll save you. Like, it's going to cost you 10, 15 grand, right? Like, we can do it for $5. Order the shingles, get a couple of guys. We'll do it on the weekend. Buy beer and pizza. We're good, right? He fucked my roof up so bad. I had this dick. I've still got problems. My basement was leaking because of how bad he did my roof. I can't even lie about this. So, this guy, and I swear to God, is an anti-vaxxer and an anti-masker. And I listened to him because he's a friend of mine. Because I thought, there's that mentality, doctor. People want to be the smartest guy in the room. They need it for their own ego, and you know what I mean. Like,
it's hard for people who believe in certain things to let go. I don't know if you've ever known anyone that's believed in things like the moon hoax, or even if you think the conspiracy is real, it would be like finding out that Back to the Left was just like a made up piece of footage from the JFK assassination. That's what they're not going to have an aha moment, right? Like, that ship has sailed. So I honestly think that we need to I was thinking that we need to rebrand COVID completely as a, and this isn't a joke, as a we need to rebrand the disease and explain it to people as if we were doing it a year and a half ago. Because what I think was this situation is so fluid that it's it's changed, and people's perceptions get messed up because they think that you said something else a week ago, or that the government said something else a month ago. And a lot of times they did. But if we would have branded this disease as the disease that exacerbates every single type of ailment that you have, which is why people with pre-existing conditions and the elderly and the overweight and people with diabetes have it, and we might have been able to make people go, oh, okay, so it's not the disease itself that is necessarily harmful for you, although it can be, but really what it does is it makes the things that already exist inside you that much worse or whatever.
Yeah.
Because we have a branding issue with this disease, I think.
Oh, and you have, again,
I was
people
thinking
who are
about
kind of
this
tethered to, tethered to belief and an opinion on this that's really hard to chisel away. I have a patient, a family who typically doesn't vaccinate for anything, and both parents were dealing with cancer diagnosis. One parent has now passed away in the last few months. The other is getting worse. And I told them very early on, many months ago, that if any of the parents end up in hospital policy might change such that they might not be allowed in the hospital if they're unvaccinated, and to please think about getting vaccinated for no other reason than I want you to be able to see your loved one if shit hits the fan with your diagnosis. And lo and behold, last week, family member was admitted to the hospital. Son can't go see her now, and he came in this week. He's not upset. He's not angry. He came in and he said, "You told me." I said, "I know I told you to go. I know I told you to do it because I knew this was going to happen." And I said, "What if?" I said, "Where are you at with being open to getting it if the hospital says you can come after a week after getting it?" Where? And he said he's just so upset at how he's felt excluded by not being vaccinated that he doesn't even disagree with the science at this point. He just won't get it out of spite.
What a selfish piece of shit.
I said,
Sorry.
I
Sorry,
said,
buddy.
I don't know what to tell you.
Now a word from Ryan.
I don't know what to tell you.
Well, what do you say? What do you say? What do you say to a guy like that? Like, did he say that because he was embarrassed? Like he was like, "Hey, listen, I agree with it all now, and I get it, and I'm just too embarrassed," or was he just mad? Like it was out of spite that he wouldn't get it.
It was all about him.
I think it's but it's tricky. It's tricky, right? Maybe I'm being too sympathetic here, but like. And Dean, I've talked about this, right? Everyone who has kind of nutty beliefs on COVID, there's something else going on, right?
Yeah.
Like nobody had like a normal functioning life and brain, and then suddenly decided to, they were pro-vax before, another anti-vax now, right? Or they were, gung ho with agreeing with science, and now they're, going to Chris Sky protests, right? Like everyone had some element of dysfunction in their lives.
I agree.
Fair to say. And this has just exacerbated that. Like they had lack of trust in authority or lack of trust in medicine. And this has been basically the fuel that just ignited that fire. And this, this patient's now dealing with the potential loss of two parents and a healthcare system that he's seeing them not necessarily being able to save his parents. And now they're saying, get this needle or we're not going to let you see your mom. And I get the anger, but also, I'm left with, we're going to talk about what's going on in St. Thomas right now. I'm looking at that saying, holy shit, like we actually have a problem that's going to now downstream lead to canceled surgeries again, lead to ICUs being filled up, the downstream effects of that, people not getting the healthcare they need, people being afraid to go to emerge because of COVID in the community. And we're going to be dealing with all this stuff again here in Southwestern Ontario that was so avoidable. Why? Because we didn't get enough people vaccinated again, right? We knew this was going to happen, but it's frustrating. It's really frustrating.
Let's start there because listen, frustration. We're into year 3. We're going into year 3, and I think people are getting fucking tired of it. I know I am, and a lot of people are. I know physicians are burnt out. They're being challenged and told that they don't know what they're talking about on a daily basis as they continue to save the lives of the very people that tell them they don't know what they're talking about. But I want to get to this because you and I were chatting about St. Thomas, and this is indicative of kind of where we are. This is in the London newspaper. Dire situation, COVID-19 patients overwhelm St. Thomas Hospital. This is in Elgin County. Just a quick recap. We've reached our capacity for critically ill patients. Our hospital is operating above capacity. This is from 2-3 days ago, both of which are direct result of COVID-19, said the chief of staff of the hospital. COVID-19 cases in Elgin are increasing at an unprecedented rate. The hospital said the number of patients requiring critical care is at its highest since the start of the pandemic 20 months ago. 20 months. So that is indicative of where we are. That is a hot spot. You mentioned it when we started. Dr. Mario Elia joins us, family physician out of London, Ontario, and he teaches this stuff too to young aspiring doctors, and so you've got a great handle on it. But we had a nice fall. We had a great summer. We're 85% vaccinated in this country. Numbers are continuing to creep up. Just quickly for reference, we had 666 yesterday, 552 today. The majority, 340, are not vaccinated. 212 are. But what is happening? And can you explain what's going on specifically in certain pockets like St. Thomas, if you can?
For sure. So as he said, like I think it's fair to say we've had a pretty damn good summer and early fall with regards to COVID. If you look at where we were last year, we've been consistently at lower numbers for the last 4 or 5 months compared to where we were in 2020, and largely as a result of vaccination. Because in terms of restrictions, yes, the unvaccinated are restricted from certain high risk settings, but if you look by and large, most of life is back to relative normal, right? We're wearing masks, yes, still, but you look at family get-togethers. A lot of people, if look at your relative social medias back from Thanksgiving, right? A lot of people were having big get-togethers, as was encouraged, right? No, there wasn't an active effort to tell people to limit their activities. For the last 2 months in my office, the number of viral infections we've been seeing is skyrocketing, and we're talking about coughs, colds, sore throats, that kind of thing. And for a good 18 months, we didn't see anything, like nothing. And that's not, and that's flu at the end of the 2019-2020 year. That was flu 2020 to 2021, and that's not only flu, but like literally every cold virus, anything contagious, we weren't seeing very, very, very much of.
Yeah, we didn't see colds and flus for like a year, did we? We didn't see nothing.
No, we didn't.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that because when people get a cough or a cold, I'm literally the first person they contact. And I will look upon those 18 months with fondness because it was awesome. But it's over. And why are viruses back? Kids are back in school. People are getting together more. We expected this, right? And for anyone who doubts, first of all, that I've heard that we heard this earlier in the pandemic. I'm not sure if anyone's still parroting this, that COVID was just mislabeled flu, and it's bullshit. We weren't seeing any of
pneumonia.
We weren't seeing any viruses that weren't COVID for 18 months. I could tell you. Whereas now I get back to up to 10 calls a day for people with coughs, colds, and the like. So it's back with a vengeance. It's a reflection of how much people are getting together, which we expected, right? We didn't dissuade people from getting together, but part and parcel of that is COVID's damn contagious, and even among largely vaccinated populations, it's going to find its way through the population. So the numbers have been creeping up for a few weeks now, but I wasn't. My eyebrows didn't get raised, I think, until this past week when we saw a pretty big jump. And then coexisting with that jump has been my kind of personal experience here in the office. So I had a patient last week who came in to see me for a completely unrelated reason, who called me Thursday and said he's now positive for COVID. No symptoms, vaccinated, thankfully. So again, no symptoms. Came up through a work screen. So again, I was in the room for 15 minutes. Both had masks on, so my level of concern's pretty low. But being in the same room with someone with COVID for 15 minutes is not necessarily the most reassuring place I could be.
Does that speak to the confidence that people have in the efficacy right now? Sorry, I was just curious because that seems to be the story on both sides. I think on the anti-vaxxer sides are like, rah, see, we told you. And then the other side is like, wow, that's a lot lower than what we thought it was going to be. Is that
absolutely.
Is that something that people in medical communities are talking about right now?
Yeah. What being lower, like the numbers that we've been seeing?
Well, the efficacy rate was supposed to be for certain things. Like I had a Pfizer Moderna mix, and it was supposed to be like the greatest ever, like 90%. But I don't know actually what the mixed ones are now. But the Pfizer and Moderna both dropped like 20. Is this normal for the efficacy rate to drop so quickly from lab to real world, or whatever you would call it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So the efficacy is certainly going to drop with time, and I think that's kind of what we're seeing with a lot of people who are vaccinated, early 2021, and they're coming up to 10, 11 months post-vaccine. Again, still really good protection against severe illness, because if you look at, and Dean, I was up here. So if you look at, and this is from the COVID science table, risk of someone ending up in the ICU with COVID who's fully vaccinated versus unvaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
So fully vaccinated, the rate is 1.7 per million Ontarians currently in the ICU with COVID versus 69.5 per million who have COVID in the ICU who are unvaccinated. So roughly, I think it's over 40 times higher, which again, if you look at this, if again, every single one of those, if every single Ontarian was vaccinated, we'd have essentially a 40 times lower rate of our patients in the ICU than we do now. And I think right around 130 patients or whatever in the ICU, we'd be in single digits almost. So the protection against severe disease has held up and has continued to hold up. Most of those high-risk individuals are getting their third doses now, so any attenuation of the effect you're not really going to see. Cross our fingers because of those third doses for those high-risk individuals. And even in cases, like overall cases, so like in my practice, right, I can tell you in the last 2 weeks, I've had, I think, about 6 positives. 5, no, here's the thing, right? So 5 of those 6 were vaccinated. 1 of them wasn't. So someone would look at those numbers who didn't understand base rates and say, well, look, 5 of them were vaccinated, 1 of them wasn't. So obviously the vaccine's not working. No, 94% of my patients are vaccinated right now. So if the vaccine wasn't doing anything for symptoms, like let's say the vaccine had just totally stopped working, we would expect, just based on chance alone, 93% of the people testing positive for COVID to be vaccinated, 7% not. But you look at those numbers, right? It was 1 out of 6. So let me do a quick calculate. 1 divided by 6. That's
You're on your
16%. 16%. So 83. Yeah. So instead of what should have been 5% of people testing positive who are unvaccinated, it's kind of closer to 20. So we're still seeing a fair good reduction in symptomatic cases from the vaccine. So there's still a strong, and again, the longer we go out, of course, the effectiveness is going to go down. And the people who are arguing, and we're still seeing these people who are cherry picking this data to try to prove in their own minds the vaccine doesn't work.
Right.
The longer this goes on for, they're going to be able to prove in their own mind that it doesn't work because, it's been a long time since people have been vaccinated. But
it's amazing how many people don't get percentages either. I mean, the Israeli conversation drives me absolutely bonkers because they've got such a high population of the overall country vaccinated. And then, you see people like Joe Rogan touting numbers like, look at this, like 300% of the people that are like, but the problem is you got to look at the percentage, you dummy. The percentage of the population that's vaccinated is massive compared to the rest of the world. So, of course, people who are still passing on COVID are probably going to be vaccinated due to the percentages, you shithead.
Yeah. At 5 times less value, too, if I'm not... Sorry, go ahead.
One more thing on top of that is you got to think, who is getting tested? Like, who is taking symptoms seriously enough to go get tested? And this is not to overgeneralize anyone who's not vaccinated, but a large percentage of them don't take COVID seriously enough to get vaccinated. Are we really expecting them to get tested for a runny nose and a loss of sense, taste, and smell? Right. So there's a bit of a testing bias too, where I think it's fair to say that people who are vaccinated are actually more likely to actually seek out testing, even though some of them may be overconfident in that vaccine status and maybe not getting tested too. I think by and large, the holdouts who have still not been vaccinated are not exactly the people in our society who are most eager to go out and see if they have COVID or not.
Yeah,
those numbers are probably an underestimate of how many people out there who are unvaccinated who actually have COVID.
Ding, ding. Yeah.
But for different reasons, though, now, because a lot of those people are like the homeopathic people, which are not the Chris Skies and the Randy Hillers of the world. They're a totally different subculture. And I'm seeing more and more of those people. Yeah, that kind of stuff, right? And I'm seeing a lot of them. And, and you're right. I was cringing a little bit when you were saying earlier about they always have something else sort of going on. And I thought, and then you qualified it and you said, and also maybe they don't have a trust in authority. And I was glad that you did. But a woman walked into the library the other day and she drove a Mercedes and she was dressed to the nine. I thought she was from Yorkville, that kind of thing. And she walks in, she's like, I just want to let you know that I can feel that there is an awakening in here. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Right. And she started to go on about like, there's going to be death camps and they're already setting them up and And I'm like, did you just pull in with a Mercedes? What are you talking about? Like, why are you talking about this stuff for? And she was like, she just kept going. And I just had to escort her out. She wasn't wearing a mask. She's like,
COVID has been hard on the mental side of society. Yeah. I have a quick question, Doctor. I don't know how much time we have left, but this is something that came up in our house because the wife and I got as soon as we were able to get vaccinated, it was the AstraZeneca, which I've affectionately referred to as the loser vax. I got that one first, and then we went to get our second one, and they weren't giving the AstraZeneca, so we got the Pfizer. And then there was all this talk and concern about mixed doses not being accepted, So we went back and asked if we could get a second Pfizer. So is the booster shot, is it different than just getting another shot? Like, is that going to be something different down the road? Or did I get a booster?
No, you got the completion of your primary series is how that would be described.
If I get a booster, I'm going to get something different?
No, you're going to get Pfizer again probably.
Okay, but I'm asking, is it?
Yeah, is that Pfizer a different chemical makeup, or is it the same as the first two that you would get?
The Pfizer booster for adults is exactly the same component as what's been in their first two.
Okay.
The Moderna, the U.S. has lowered the dose. Canada might as well. I haven't checked the latest on.
Yeah, they've gone to lower dose, 50 micrograms. I think
it'll be a lower dose
because
because they found that it's just as effective. So that's where it's now, Locke, the one thing to keep in mind, I'm not sure if we've talked about this before, but the AstraZeneca followed by either Moderna or Pfizer is probably actually the most effective combo of, and not just combo, most effective 2-dose series you can get.
Right here.
So
I'm calling it the loser vax to be a dick, not because I didn't think it worked, but
which is awesome because it's been a headache. You look at the emotional roller coaster that anyone who received AstraZeneca has been through, right? Where get the vax, great. Well, it's not as effective. Okay, well, I'll still get it because we're being encouraged to get it. Well, now you can't get a second one because of clots. We're gonna give you another one, and now you can't travel. So every day was something different, right? Thankfully now we know it's A, the most effective combo, so great, and B, U.S. changed the rules around mixing, so so it's a good combo to have got. And again, your third dose, when the time comes, will be Pfizer likely. And now the issue on
and they have my records. They have my records, so I would go in when the time comes. Like, I'm 50, I'm in good shape. It's probably going to be a while before I'm encouraged to get a booster shot, right?
Yeah,
I'm in good shape.
Yeah, probably minimum 6 months. So minimum 6 months, but this is going to largely depend on supply.
Okay.
I know in Ontario it's 70.
Is my drinking going to play a part in any of this?
Your drinking will not. Hey, No, I don't
Doctor?
think alcohol consumption.
This is his
chance.
chance. Doctor,
Yeah.
tell him.
You could have put an end to the misery right there,
Yeah.
Mario.
Yeah.
You could have done it.
You just
There's,
destroyed a marriage, doctor.
You missed your
Hope
whole
you're happy.
opportunity to
Sorry,
help a
Locke.
guy. Way to go.
It's all good. I've been on my own for a long time, doctor.
Can I ask you something? You made
The
reference.
boosters at some point, probably. Now, the thing I've heard quite a bit from people is, pushback on people who haven't even had the first two, complaining about the fact that they might have to have boosters. And I tell them, how about you get your first two, and then I'll stop bugging you about boosters. You want to get your first two doses, and you're complaining about something that
That's what I was going to
happened yet.
ask you. We're
And then
already
think,
at
this has
boosters,
happened
but
with
like
anything else, right? When people come in to get chlamydia treated for their 5th time, they never complain to me like, Doc, why are you giving me this medication for a 5th
Wait, you're
time?
Bonzi's doctor?
Hey, can chlamydia cause 3 balls? Can you get 3 balls from chlamydia?
That's chlamydia.
No, what did Nicki Minaj's? Was that her cousin?
Yeah.
yeah.
It was her cousin.
No, it was her cousin's friend.
Yeah,
Uncle.
that's it.
I'm not even kidding.
Cousin's
Cousin's
friend's
uncle.
Or
Possibly.
when someone needs to take their blood pressure pills again, do they complain every 3 months to their doctor? Like, oh, you're giving me these pills again. Like, no, because it's you have to do things repeatedly sometimes in life, right? Like,
How about the
that's what
diabetics?
happens. And I've never heard, anyone who's complaining about these booster shots has never complained about their tetanus booster.
Right.
Ever. I'll ask them, when was your last tetanus booster? 10 years ago. Did you complain about that? Like you're complaining about your friggin' COVID booster now? No, because it's time and things wear off and you get something else. And that's what happens in that.
This
Bonzi
sort of
just
ties
pointed out that I'm married. That's all that is.
This ties into the conversation we were having not too long ago, but everybody that I notice in my friends group that is anti-vax or anti-mask or pissed off about their freedoms is also the guy that when he loses a finger or thumb tries to duct tape it or crazy glue it back onto their hand. So I don't know how many times I've been told by buddies, don't go to the doctor. You don't need stitches. Come over here. I'll crazy glue it.
Well, same thing with the shingle guy, right? Like it all kind of feeds into the same thing. And Dr. Mario made reference to something earlier I wanted to get back to real quick. But you said, you get certain people to come in to get tested. The 5 of the 6 people you had that have tested positive were all fully vaccinated. On average, how many unvaccinated people versus vaccinated people actually come in and go, hey, I'd like a test? Is that number like infinitely higher on the vaccinated side?
For sure. There are not many unvaccinated people in my practice who have come in with symptoms asking for an evaluation or a COVID test.
But didn't the hospital stat just say 212 out of 550 or something like that? From the article?
So they're not running in for testing repeatedly.
Those are admitted.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's worse.
So they're tested whether they want it or not. So.
That's when their mom. That's when mom says,
Johnny, that's like 40%.
You're sick. I'm taking you to the doctor. Fuck you, mom. Just get me a ginger ale.
Dean, can you remind me of the numbers though? Because wasn't it like 212 out of 550 or something from the news article?
212. Well, this is just with so it was like 554, 212 were fully vaccinated, the rest were not. But that's just new infections. It's not like so think about that.
Seems pretty high still.
Well, think about that for a second. Like if you let's say you got 554 people, and on average, Dr. Mario is saying a way more people who are vaccinated will come in to get tested. If that number's 340. How many people didn't come in and get tested that are just kind of wandering around sick or at home and not giving a shit because they didn't give a shit in the first place, Doc?
I see.
The one place we're catching those though, I think, is in the workplaces that are mandating testing if you're unvaccinated now. So that's where they're getting caught up.
Yeah,
the numbers are going up a little higher, is because they're being forced to take a test now, right? And kids,
for sure. And a lot of those unvaccinated numbers, I'm sure, are kids too. That's the one thing you don't see in that breakdown that the Ministry of Health sends out every day.
Age.
We're seeing a ton of a ton of spread in kids. I don't think I've seen you guys since. So my daughter actually, my daughter's in preschool. Didn't get again. She only started preschool in September. From when COVID started to September, this kid didn't get sick once. It was amazing. And now she's been off every other week due to coughs and colds. Unfortunately, her preschool actually had an outbreak. So she's got 12 kids in her class. 5 of them had COVID.
Wow.
And one of the little girls, one of her friends, was positive. No symptoms, positive though. Infected her sister, who also developed no symptoms but was positive. But this little girl with no symptoms, unvaccinated, just because of age, not even eligible, but unvaccinated, positive, no symptoms, has infected close to 15 family members now. All of whom are vaccinated, thankfully, and not sick, thankfully. But you look at how contagious these kids can get when they get it, it's incredible. Now, someone would say to that, the example I just gave, like, 15 family members got it, they're all vaccinated. Vaccine doesn't work. Well, think what the vaccine does, right? The vaccine provides your immune cells to be ready to fight it when it comes, and if you are exposed to a low viral load, generally your body can fight that. But if you're exposed to enough virus, you can develop a bit of an infection that starts to brew while your immune cells, which are already primed and ready to fight it, start kicking in even more. So, again, in this situation, and same kind of thing happened. You guys heard that story, the old man hockey team?
Yeah.
One of them died.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was up in like Newmarket, wasn't it? Where like the entire the details were sketchy, but just to kind of recap, a whole team, well, it was a league. It kind of ran through the league, but an entire team got it. One of the guys on the team died. A bunch of guys got pretty sick. And this was a seniors league or like an older men's rec league up in Newmarket.
And the guy that died was vaccinated.
Well, that's kind of what I heard. Is that like everybody was vaccinated to some extent, right?
Yeah, the whole team was. So yeah, the whole team of all these old men, all 70 plus, I think I read. Yeah. I don't have any information beyond what was said in the news, but a whole team of 70 plus year old men who were vaccinated, essentially the whole team developed COVID and one of them died. So again, the things I've, you get the commentary that, well, again, I thought the vaccine was working. How did this team of vaccinated men all get COVID? And I come back to, well, again, where did they get it from? And likely it was they've talked about, was this a group of kids that were there before? Again, we know that COVID is aerosolized, right? And did a kid who was in there before have a massive viral load? And even though all these guys were vaccinated, they were exposed to enough of a viral load that they did all test positive. And again, the fact that they were, you think about this, right? They were all exposed to potentially so much virus that it got the whole team to be positive, yet only killed, and again, this is not to minimize it, but only killed one of these 70-year-old men who were exposed to such a high viral load.
I don't know if someone put that on a piece of paper and said, these people were vaccinated, they all got the disease anyways, and one of them died. Is it easier to make an argument for pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine? It's anti-vaccine in that particular case.
No,
it's
exactly.
easier to make an argument
again,
because you got to
100%.
unpeel all these layers to get to the point, which is like, well, if the viral load is like this and the efficacy rate is dropping because of that, like, it's
Absolutely.
really hard to concise that message, right?
Yeah, absolutely right, James. And this is why communication with this is so tough, because it's so easy for someone to see that and just simply write it off as, well, it didn't work. Because if it worked, they shouldn't have got COVID. No one should have died, right? That would be the message. And then this nuance around it that took me, again, 2 minutes to just explain. If someone already had their mind made up about vaccines to begin with, they're not paying attention to that explanation, which is, again, why, look at what's going on with the Senators right now, right? Where it's, picking off a player per day on an entirely vaccinated team. Why is that happening? Well, okay, the comparison really is what happened with the Canucks in the spring, where guys got really sick on that team,
right? And
families got really sick on that team, where we're not really seeing that necessarily with Ottawa yet, where we're seeing guys out of the lineup and in protocols, but we're not seeing guys get deathly ill. And even in the NFL, which it's amazing to me how many guys week to week, my fantasy team's dying with all these guys on the COVID list.
You're worried
But-
about
Not
your
your
fantasy
fantasy team.
team.
I'm worried about my fantasy team here, guys.
Jeez.
Well, isn't and can I just kind of
But-
add to that too? Like we talked about a couple of numbers. One was like you have 40 times greater risk of being hospitalized and having severe issues, ICU, if you're not fully vaccinated, right? We just went through that. Those numbers are if you're fully vaccinated, 1 point something per million Ontarians are hospitalized that are fully vaccinated. It's 69 per million if you're not vaccinated. That's hospitalized, ICU, death. So let's just put that over here for now. Then let's talk about who's driving the infection, right? Driving the infection, unvaccinated people. So they bear the brunt of the most serious infections, hospitalizations, life-changing long-haul effects, number one. Number two, they also bear the brunt, but to a lesser extent, of the new infections. And in that, I think kind of tells a little bit of the whole story, if you will, which is, hey, listen, the seatbelt approach to this vaccine clearly fucking works. Pardon my French, but it clearly works because while people are still getting it, the people who have the greatest protection over life-changing side effects are the people who are fully vaccinated. It's in the numbers that you've just given out. In my mind, right, efficacy is a big deal. Like we talk about efficacy being the big, and so it kind of removes all the bullets from the anti-vaxxer's gun if you actually just look at the numbers. But what they like to do is they like to look at it from like an umbrella approach, which is, oh, people are still getting infected. That's not the point, right? People are still going to get infected. We're
Or
talking
they pinpoint
about
one number.
exactly how
that
bad
benefits them.
can it get, and it's clearly 40 times worse for those who are not vaccinated. That's kind of what you're saying, and the numbers bear it out, correct?
For sure, and that's why those studies and again the numbers on such a population basis are so important because we can get, again, like you said, if someone looks at, I'll point at the NFL right now, right? Each week, a vaccinated NFL player is testing positive for COVID, and that repeated storyline when they're hearing that over and over again leads them to question. Is it really working? Because I'm hearing all these stories about guys who are vaccinated and testing positive. We got to get back to when we look at the whole population, at who's vaccinated, who's not. That's where we can actually see the efficacy, and it hasn't been in doubt this whole time. And it's you guys have done a great job talking about this, and it's exhausting having to have these little these arguments with people where they're questioning like, oh, this group over here was vaccinated, but they still got it. Like, guys, we know that happens. No one is doubting that happens.
We've known that
But-
from the
but
beginning
when
of
we
this.
actually
Just
look
certain
at
people didn't
your life-
Well, we
listen.
still need to convince them because we have to rely
I
on
know,
them to get
absolutely,
vaccinated.
yeah, we
That's the
can't
weird part.
exhaust
We have to
yourself.
rely on the people that we have no faith in. Like,
I have an
Can we talk
interesting
about the same
question, Doctor, and this has something to do with a conversation I had on text with a listener last week. We were reporting on numbers, and this guy was very upset and you could tell in text and swearing and la da 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 da. We were talking about the strains and the numbers of the COVID strains. And I don't know if it was something we said wrong on the air, but he was upset because apparently he said you can't test for strains, you can just test for COVID. And then I was like, what are you? Come on, like, are you an ant? And he goes, no, I work in a lab. I'm telling you right now, we can just test for COVID. Now, I didn't say anything on the air because there's already enough confusion and misinformation in it. And it wasn't like this guy had the disposition, at least I could tell, that was worth a phone call or digging in more. So I just sort of banked it. What does he mean by that? And is there any merit to that?
So what he might have meant. So when we get the results now on somebody with COVID, let me actually hang on a second. Let me bring up the latest report. I'll tell you what it says when someone is positive for COVID. You're getting it live here, guys.
You just want everybody to know what kind of online program this is. This program brings you real-time information.
A COVID result in Ontario that came in over the weekend.
Report getting music?
Do you need some music for this, or would you like to go al fresco?
don't never ask. Just do it.
So what it'll say is that they test for a few different genes that are seen in somebody with COVID. So they test for an N gene, an S gene. There's another region that are definitive for COVID. And then at the end of the report, it'll comment on whether it's a variant of concern or not. Again, that was a term we were using back with the UK strain, which became the alpha strain. So all their testing. So at this point, Lachlan, for the most part, they're not sequencing every test that comes through because it's just so labor intensive. They don't need to necessarily. They don't need to know. They need to know, is it Delta or not, for the most part. And like 100% of COVID right now in Ontario, at least, is Delta. So they're testing basically to show, is it Delta or not, and that's kind of all you're getting right now with the information.
So he was kind of right, but should that give us a cause for concern, especially
that they're what
especially considering the fact that this has been morphing and that we're gonna, possibly infection could spread in the vaccinated population if the virus finds a way around the immune system and the antibodies that we developed from the vaccines?
No, they're still looking at a population level to look for other variants. So when other variants start popping up, whether it's Delta Plus or whatever, they'll be able to detect that in the testing they're doing now. They're not testing each individual sample for its whole genetic code and looking for that. They're not doing that, but we're not, and Canada's really not at the forefront for this in detecting new strains, and this has been kind of other countries doing a lot of the legwork there. Thankfully, we haven't really been somewhere where we've been worried about new mutations popping up, like initiating here in Canada. So no, I'm not too worried about the testing that's happening here in terms with the strains.
I saw a crazy report about deer. Did you see the thing about the deer?
Apparently, they want to start vaccinating deers. Yeah.
Well, the virus apparently runs through deer really easily, and they're worried about the mutations happening within the deer. It's like, holy shit! Now we're worrying about deer.
Well, it's hunting season right now, so
yeah.
I've never, it's with COVID. Depending on how online someone is, you can get concerned about, like, you look at, even from the beginning of the pandemic, people worried about dogs being reservoirs, cats. Did we have to, what? Sure, you're negative and you're quarantining, but what about your pet? Thankfully, none of that has actually become clinically relevant. So that's the one. Even the newer strains than Delta, right? We've seen, before we said Lambda and Mu and Delta Plus, and some of my patients are worried about, what is this, Delta Plus in the UK? Should we be worried about it here?
Yeah,
I'm not. It's not at a level of concern that I'm losing any sleep over it right now.
Okay.
Maybe that's just partly exhaustion, but it's not something that keeps me up. The thing that I'm worried about, and with these cases going up, so I tweeted about this the other day, that I don't think we're at a point in Ontario where we need to actually implement any increased restrictions above what we have right now. I don't, even with the numbers going up, I don't think we need to do anything drastic. I don't think we need any increased restrictions. I think what we've got now is sufficient. But what we do need is a bit of a wake up call for everyone, because we've all been in a kind of a complacent state in Ontario for a number of months, and we're all guilty of that to a certain degree. Like, I've had a student with me for the last 2 weeks, and when he's here reviewing a case, sometimes I'll have my mask on, sometimes I won't. Family get-togethers have been a bit bigger, and again, these have all been things that we've kind of gotten back to kind of a bit of normalcy. But I think there's a few things that I think we can tighten up a bit. And again, we all have a role in this. And I think messaging from the government has to be really clear on this too. So number one, if you have symptoms, get tested. I've had a few patients, of these people who've been positive in my practice the last couple of weeks, or at least a couple of them who had symptoms for 5 or 6 days before they got tested. They thought it was allergies. Right, we haven't seen much COVID. No one's, people aren't talking about it as much. It's easier to get into kind of a state of complacency, but they really should have got tested earlier in their illness, and that's something we can all do, right? So if you have if you have a cough, if you got fever, chills, fatigue, all the symptoms that we associate with COVID, instead of trying to write it off and giving it a day or two and crossing your fingers it goes away, get tested. Don't be a source of transmission. Obviously get vaccinated if you haven't already. And then, in kind of more informal situations, I wouldn't tell people, I know sporting events get kind of labeled as the first, victim when we want to tighten things up, but I don't necessarily see those big events, and I don't see restaurants where people are vaccinated as our main source of transmission right now, right? We've got schools with unvaccinated kids, and then we've got informal things where people are just getting together for dinner parties with people, or people are having friends over. And these are times where we're in contact with people for, hours at a time. I don't want to see, again, I'll get on my soapbox for a second here. I don't want to see restaurants and places and barbershops and places that have disproportionately felt the wrath of COVID so far. I don't want to see them targeted first by any means, considering we already have vaccine mandates in place. Unless we have a really good rationale that these are disproportionately causing our spread, it shouldn't be the reflex to close them down again first. And I've seen a little bit of rhetoric from that online that we got to start thinking about closing these down again. I don't think we'll see in Ontario, not for political reasons. I don't think he'll ever shut them down again. But even for medical reasons, I don't think we should. I think even just the messaging of letting people know, and this has actually been part of why cases have come down during past waves, partly due to the restrictions that have been put in place, but partly when you see in the news that it goes up and up and up and up and up, and things get shut down, just by nature you take things more seriously, and you have less people over, and you don't necessarily take as many liberties as you would otherwise. There's that messaging piece to it that beyond just closing stuff down, if you let people know this is getting serious, you'll see a bit of a change in behavior that I think will have tangible effects.
But maybe not with the group. We need it to. That's the only issue.
No, but I think with the group, with those who are taking it seriously and are vaccinated, because we're seeing more spread in them. Not a huge amount, right? Not enough to be questioning the vaccine efficacy, but we're seeing a little bit of community spread where we wouldn't have otherwise. And Dean, can we talk about the St. Thomas business if we can?
I wanted to before you go too, because I asked you like 14 questions at once, so it's probably why we didn't get to it. But there are hot spots, and you sent this to me this week. You and I were DMing back and forth about this. I asked you why. Can you let people in on why this is happening? Just insane. I know it's happening in certain areas, but why it's happening in certain areas specifically where it comes to this hospital?
For sure. So this specific, so I'm in the southwest end of London. I'm about 15, 20 minutes from St. Thomas here in my clinic. And St. Thomas serves a number of surrounding communities, Elmer, Malahide, Dutton, a whole bunch of areas around St. Thomas. And even before COVID, I was actually looking into this before the show here because I wanted to make sure I had my information. Even before COVID, vaccine rates in schools in that region, so in the St. Thomas kind of Elgin region, were among the lowest in the province. And that's due in part to kind of the local community. So education plays a role in that, religion plays a role in that, language plays a role in that. There's a significant portion of what are called Mexican Mennonites in the region, and their rates of vaccine uptake were pitiful pre-COVID. And that's, your measles, your mumps, all of that stuff was already an issue with trust in the community, in the medical system before COVID. And then COVID started, and as you guys have covered this at length with Henry Hildebrandt and the Church of God in Elmer, which have become unfortunately nationally famous. That triggered its own level of lack of trust in the medical system. And the reason why a lot of us were really worried about what was happening in Elmer early on in COVID was that we knew we were dealing with a population already that didn't trust the healthcare system, right? And now you get a pastor who, for largely, ego-driven reasons and attention-seeking reasons, has further led his community to question
modern
medical
science
authority. And so that's made things worse. And then you've had parasites like Randy Hillier, who comes in,
wasn't his daughter,
and brings his daughter to run for federal parliament in this region, knowing that it was, an area where they could potentially capitalize on COVID denialism, and you ramp that up, and now you have an area. So you have the N5H postal code in Almer and Malahide has a vaccination rate. So 53% of eligible residents in the N5H postal code have received their vaccine.
But this is what they asked for, dude. This is what they asked for, right?
That's Mennonite stuff, isn't it?
No, but like when you say I don't want to get vaccinated according to whatever culture you're from, you asked for this anyway. Sorry, your comparison is what?
So if you compare this to I was looking at, where would this compare? Because we often kind of
Texas
thumb our nose at the U.S. states, especially the southern states, for how horrible their vaccine rates are. Well, I looked and I thought, how compared to a U.S. state, and this would actually be ranked. So, and the N5H postal code would be ranked 47th in the U.S. with a worse vaccination rate than Arkansas, Louisiana, Georgia, and Tennessee. They would be better than Mississippi, Alabama, Wyoming, and Idaho. So they'd at least have that. But
that's saying
worse
something.
than all but 4 U.S. states. That's how bad our vaccination rate is in the N5H postal code. And we've been waiting for this shoe to drop for this entire pandemic on when would COVID find this community, because it hadn't till it had only kind of hit in blips, but it's caught up now. And as you posted there, St. Thomas Elgin General Hospital is, as they said, in a dire situation. And this is not hyperbole. They have 13 COVID positive patients. And you think, wow, what's 13 patients? The whole hospital only houses 150 total. So 10% of them right now are COVID, are hospitalized COVID patients. They're ICU. I've worked in an ICU as a student. Not a lot of beds there. I think a dozen beds total. They don't have the capacity to be dealing with sick COVID people. And as you saw, Dr. Chahadi and I share patients. We have a few mutual patients. In the next few days, those patients, they're going to be shipping people to London. And what does that mean? That means surgeries get canceled in St. Thomas. That means that people are going to be afraid to go to the Emerge, which they shouldn't be. If you're sick, still go to the Emerge. We can't do this again where people are putting off care. Those patients are going to get shipped to London pretty soon. What does that mean to London? That means my patients' surgeries get canceled now. That means my patients with medical issues get booted out of the hospital sooner than they probably should be because there's no beds. This is what happens. And this is not going to get better. The problem is in these communities, you're looking at a 50% vaccination rate. This isn't going to get better, right? This is going to keep spreading. And why is it not going to get better? Because we've got a population who's unvaccinated, who doesn't believe COVID's real, because I shouldn't say just say their pastor, but some of their prominent leaders are telling them that COVID's not even real. Why would they get tested for it until they're really sick and ending up in the hospital? And we know with COVID, if you actually jump on it earlier, there are actually things we can do in some cases to make it less likely they're going to get sick. So we've got an unvaccinated population. We've got people who don't trust it enough to actually get tested. And they don't trust the public health unit enough to do anything about this. This is going to keep getting worse and worse. The only thing that's going to change is that if enough of people who they know get sick, that may change things enough where they're more likely to get vaccinated,
Sure.
more likely to get tested.
I mean, I just hope they still have their freedoms.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. Religious freedoms, especially.
You know, absolutely. I feel for a lot of the people though, because a lot of them, like we talk about education level and we talk about language, and that's a significant barrier for a lot of them. Truthfully, a lot of them don't know any better luck. Truthfully, the people, you know, the people I blame for this are the Henry Hildebrands, who know full well what that this will harm people, and he doesn't give a shit.
Well, I was talking with a nurse at London at St. Thomas Hospital just on a DM. Didn't want me to release her name. Henry's been in there a couple of times to pray over soon-to-be dead or recently dead parishioners. Like, he's been in there and he's seen it, and he still didn't give a shit, which is why I wrote this last weekend, because all this was driving me nuts. It was a soft piece. I didn't want to upset the religious right, so I did this little article, quote, "If Jesus is coming back, he's not taking any of you evangelical terrorist assholes with him." I thought I was nice about it, but apparently some people didn't, and I feel that way because
what did your mom say to you?
Not, she wasn't happy. She's like, why
do the accent?
She's in London too, but she's like these people. Both my parents are double vaccinated. My mom is like one of the most observant people in the world, and she identifies as someone who believes in Jesus, right? Well, my entire family does. And most of them. I've got a segment of my immediate family that is not. And it's my mom texted me this morning. You know what she said? You know, it's fascinating. She's like, do you know anything about, because my part of my family, which isn't vaccinated, plans on going to Mexico for 10 days. And she's like, do you think they'll be allowed back into the country? I'm like, I don't think so. And then she was
I don't think
mortified.
They're going to make it back. Tell you
she was mortified. And you know what I said? I go, wow, job done. I mean, you got nothing to worry about. I mean, they'll all be in Mexico. But it's literally like the religious aspect of this is so intense in certain areas. And there are these hotbeds. And Dr. Mario is right. I mean, these people legitimately choose their faith over their fellow man time and time and time again, because legitimately a lot of them think it's all that they know. But then you've got certain people like Henry Hildebrand standing at the head of that snake going, yeah, the guys, don't get your vaccine, it's terrible for you, while people are dropping dead in his church. Like, it is bizarre.
Do you ever wonder how political it is, how politics might have played a role in that decision making? Like, I'm trying to imagine a Canada where like someone like Jason Kenney is prime minister, or Stephen Harper again, or someone like that, someone who's like, you know, down with the Jesus-y people. And if more religious people would be vaccinated because of that, and maybe less far left wingers, and in the States too, because Trump was already out of office. So then you got Joe Biden, and now all the right wingers hate Joe Biden. So they're like, fuck getting vaccinated. I don't care. Jesus loves me. I'm just wondering if any of you guys think politics has something to play in this, because a lot of people are like, if you polled a lot of the people who are hardcore anti-vaxxers, I don't know how many Trudeau voters there are in there, but I'm certain it's not many.
Not a lot.
Yeah, that hasn't necessarily helped vaccination rates in Alberta with Kenya as premier, though, right?
Yeah,
fair enough.
We're not doing too bad. We had the best summer ever.
Look at right.
But you're still at like 81%, aren't you, or something like
that? The Trumpers were screaming about how he was.
What
was it called? Project Rapid, whatever the fuck it was.
Warp Speed.
Warp Speed. He's the one that's responsible for it, and blah blah blah. And then I'm not taking the vaccines.
That's what I mean.
You just hear yourselves.
If you
even hear
yourselves, a lot of those people.
A quick question: do you think we could have superseded some of the issues that we're dealing with if we would have just called the shot the COVID shot? I was walking into Shoppers today, and it just said flu shot, and it made me realize that I don't even know what the flu shot is. Is the flu shot a vaccine?
Yes.
Yeah, the flu shot's a vaccine.
Okay.
It's a good point. And did all of the stuff about the different brands just confuse the public? Probably. I don't know how we could have done it else, in any other way though, because the studies were coming out on each of them separately when they were coming out, and people knew full well, like the brands. Couldn't have hidden the fact that there were different brands, right? And people are so invested in the information behind this that it just kind of took on where we've almost truthfully, when possible, when patients would come in for their shot, they didn't ask me what brand it was. I wasn't telling them, oh, it's Moderna you're getting today instead of Pfizer. They didn't care. They didn't ask me. They obviously
I
didn't care.
Do you get anybody
It was
coming
in-
in there
well, it was in
asking
the,
for a certain flu shot, though? Do you get like, hey, listen, let's line up
Yeah.
the
high
litany
dose.
of flu
Well,
shots you
seniors.
got?
Yeah, seniors want high dose, low dose, that kind of thing,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they don't ask
Huh.
for brands, right? So you're
You
right.
can get a
that
higher
this
dose?
Kind of
I didn't know that.
I had no
for
idea.
seniors now. They get a higher dose.
I'm anti-flu shot.
So
Actually.
the St. Thomas Elgin General patients, there's 13 hospitalized patients right there. I just texted one of my friends who she's a respirologist. So she's actually been on call the last week in St. Thomas, looking after inpatients, and she said she's never seen anything like this. Like since this pandemic started, this is the craziest week she's had. She's a respirologist, a lung doctor at St. Thomas Elgin General Hospital. And they've got 13 patients there with COVID. And I asked, how many are unvaccinated? She said, every single one. Every single one is unvaccinated who's in the hospital right now in St. Thomas.
Wow.
13 for 13. So now the thing is, how do we change? And this is where public health and their expertise is so important, because, how do we get the people in this postal code who, as of November 15th, still haven't been vaccinated? And how do we change get the needle? It's not by, Dean, I love you, but they're not listening to this podcast today, right? They're not watching my Facebook videos. They've largely tuned me out. It's going to take the health unit and the relationships they've developed over the years with local leaders who are who do trust them and who have tentacles into these communities. That's how it's going to actually, because in the end, we, as exhausted as, I've said that a few times, you can't just give up, because this, in an area like this, which is unvaccinated, where you're seeing COVID raging, you have to do something, because this is going to have a massive downstream effect on
I think
healthcare
you need to let people in to watch them die. And I know that sounds awful, and I'm not trying to be a dick. I actually think it's
Well,
the
they're gonna
only
hear
way.
stories.
You don't even have to try. Look, go
No, it sounds awful, but I can't see a scenario that, from what you painted, the picture you painted, where you're going to change these people's minds. I think the only way is to actually, you got to go in and watch Uncle Terry kick the bucket. Because
right now,
hope that they learn something from the people they're losing in their community.
I don't see don't see public messaging doing a whole lot either. Like with a lot of these extreme religious people.
Well,
just think about
even if it's not religious, Ryan. Here we are. We've got our public officials stepping up to podiums around Thanksgiving and going, "Okay, here's the guidelines. If you're vaccinated, you can have 2 families over. If you're not, you can have what?" You think that fucking family that's unvaccinated is listening to? No, they don't even believe it's real. Like, they're not listening.
This is what Dr. Mario, I think, is trying to get at, is changing the hearts and minds and using the trust that they may have slight little bits of with public health and these communities. It's like saying, okay, well, I'll get a public health nurse to go in and tell these religious people that abortion is okay now. They're the same.
Politicians don't have the balls to stand up at a podium and criticize religious groups anymore.
Well, they don't have the relationships, right? Like we've seen, and I get what Dr. Mario is saying, and he's right. It's going to take and I think it's going to take them losing, right? I think it's going to take certain people losing fathers, losing husbands, losing brothers, losing sisters, maybe not watching the demise, but at the same time going through it. But like you say, we need to change the hearts and minds of people. I'm at that point now, and I've said this before, where it's like, I just don't care. Like, I know they're not listening to this podcast because they're all over my Twitter feed.
I don't know about that. A lot of people listen to us who hate us.
It's true. It is true.
It's those personal stories.
Yeah. Sorry?
Because those personal stories carry more weight. And one would hope that the personal stories of so many people south of the border, where you've seen video after video of people who are ill, who've lost family members, saying, please don't go through this. That's ricocheted off them. But it's going to take, unfortunately, personal stories, whether it's a friend of a family member,
and even then,
someone because right now the anecdotes that they have are, and I've talked to people who are vaccine hesitant. The same science flunky from high school. I asked her, I said, what's going on? Like, why are you being like this? And she said that she knows friends or family. She knows 4 or 5 people who've had myocarditis or pericarditis after the vaccine. And her mother-in-law was cancer-free for 3 years, and she got the shot. Now her cancer's coming back. So I said, there's a few things here. So I'm not doubting the stories that you've heard from any people in your life, because obviously you trust them and you value them. But the likelihood of you knowing 4 people who've had myocarditis, pericarditis from the vaccine is infinitesimal, because I have 2,200 patients, 1,900 of them been vaccinated, not a single one had pericarditis. What are the odds that you just happen to know 4 people who've had it?
She's
Like
lucky.
what's likely
that's like celiac.
they've
The
been
fact that you've taken the time to even break it down with that many patients in your roster, that you're even pacifying this idiocy is, you know what? You're a way better person than I am, man. This is why I could never be a fucking doctor.
All of us.
Well,
Yeah,
don't give me
because
too much credit. The
patient,
conversation devolved, and she's blocked me from Facebook. So don't give me too much
well,
credit.
good
But
for you.
tried.
You know what?
I
Good
tried.
for you.
I
That
tried.
there's
I tried.
10 minutes tomorrow that you won't have to waste, and you can
Yeah.
hang out with your baby and stuff. That's
But
great.
I said to her, what's probably happened is those people in your life didn't necessarily lie to you that they've had it. But probably what happened, I'm guessing, is that some of them had some chest discomfort after getting the shot, because a lot of people get achy after they get the shot, right? It happens. Sometimes you get achy in your chest. They went to the hospital. They probably had an ECG and blood work done, and were told they were normal, sent home. They didn't like that answer because they still didn't feel well, and they've now told everyone in their life that they had myocarditis.
That's like people who are celiac when really they're just a little bit gluten intolerant, just a little bit. But like, I got celiac, I can't eat your dinner rolls.
We're taking the advice. And then this person whose cancer got worse, right? Whose cancer got worse after they got the shot. Again, we're talking about the emotions of cancer and the fact that, if you're doing something to the entire population and other stuff happens, it didn't mean one caused the other. And causation is very difficult to convince someone that one didn't cause the other. But I have another patient whose cancer was stable for 15 years. She hasn't been vaccinated. Her cancer has now spread. Do I blame that on the fact that she hasn't been vaccinated? Of course not. It has nothing to do with that. But so again, just doing something and then something happening shortly after. I know emotionally and psychologically the tendency is to try to link these two things, but people's cancer is going to get, if I'm vaccinating 95% of my population and someone's cancer gets worse, someone's cancer was going to get worse in my practice in the last year, right? Someone was going to get stroke. Someone was going to get a heart attack. Someone was going to get bypass surgery. So like all these things are going to happen. And just because we're doing something to literally almost everybody in the population, we can't then blame everything that happens on that. And how do we tease that out? We do studies to see if these things actually cause these adverse events. And the New England Journal, I think, Dean, I think I've sent you this link, where they looked at all of these adverse events and found that, yes, it does increase the risk of myocarditis by a very small amount, less than COVID does. Okay, but the vaccine does by a small amount. Does it cause sudden death? Well, how would it cause sudden death? Would it cause it through an arrhythmia? Well, it doesn't increase the risk of arrhythmias. Would it increase it through pulmonary embolism? Well, it doesn't it doesn't increase the risk of pulmonary embolism. So the idea that all these people are just dropping dead from the shot, well, they have to be dropping dead from something then. But if that cause is not increased, then it can't possibly be from that. To go back to this anti-science flunky one more time, I got another funny story about her. So she sent me part of this conversation. She listed
you know what? You've been hanging on to this until you knew that you'd be coming back on the show. Eh? You're like, I gotta fucking get her.
I love it.
Yeah,
I have another theory on this one for you, by the way.
You can refer to your script if you need to. Go ahead.
Yeah. So she listed out close, I think there was probably 3 dozen athletes in the world who've died suddenly in the last year. And essentially making the assertion that, well, could it be of COVID that caused all these? I'm not sure if you guys have seen these. Essentially, just all these people are just cutting and pasting the same friggin' list and posting it and blasting all over the internet. Well, it takes 2 minutes to start Googling these names and finding out that none of these have been attributed to actual COVID. But shockingly, athletes do die suddenly on the field and on the court. And this has been happening for millennium, right? And
Forever.
But now, some of them had a COVID vaccine, and some of them dropped dead. Well, it had to be the vaccine that caused the sudden death. Right. Well, no, that's not like it's so frustrating because, again, the emotional, if we're dealing with people who, let's put aside the religion for a second, put aside, like, if, let's say they're actually normally rational people, and they see these stories that are being put out online about all these athletes dropping dead, and they've got a young son who they're debating whether they get vaccinated, that's going to have an emotional effect on them and lead them to not get vaccinated, even though this story is actually bullshit and didn't actually remotely link the two. It just listed a whole bunch of people who died of some unknown cause, right? But and we know in the healthcare profession, we know, sadly, people die randomly of all kinds of stuff. It's tragic, and we throw our hands up and say, what the hell happened? Like, I've had a guy in his, probably a few years ago now, he was 28, 29 when he died of a heart attack. No risk factor, just died suddenly of a heart attack. This is pre-COVID. Like, this stuff happens, but now you've got the vaccine getting everyone's emotions ramped up,
Right.
and then they can just list a list of. You remember Randy Hiller got in shit for this, right? Where he
he attributed the death of
a rare Randy apology, probably threatened lawsuit,
which wasn't an apology.
It wasn't even an apology. It was baloney.
And
Where he said,
why do we still care about apologies? I've always hated this. Like, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, good.
But like Randy, attributing their deaths to COVID, where the family is saying, "You asshole, it wasn't actually COVID." What do you do? But you look at these athletes, like in this list of athletes, who not even from COVID, but these abhorrent individuals online who just take all these deaths and say, "All right, let's
they were
on COVID and scare the crap
saying
out of
that the Astro World kids.
Yeah, that was just Chris Sky. That was just Chris Sky.
I saw it a couple of times though. Maybe it started with him. Absolutely.
Anyway, the vaccine. At precisely the moment of the concert.
Yeah. I'm
the exact same time everybody. Yeah.
The reason why I don't have a lot of sympathy for any sort of excuse in this regard, is just because I'm basically a functioning idiot, and I get through day to day, and I can sniff out stupidity. I don't know. I know we're supposed to have empathy, but it's getting harder and harder, right? For me, anyway.
Yeah, I don't have any, but that's a self-protection thing, right? Like, I think a lot of Doc's got to do what Doc's got to do. He's got a job to perform, so he has to have empathy on the daily. But just as an aside, and I know our half an hour has turned into an hour and 17, and I thank you for your time. But just as an aside, I do want to say this. Dr. Mario is not getting paid from us. He is not getting paid by Big Pharma. He is not getting. This is an hour and 15 that was supposed to be 30 of him trying to encourage people with proper information. What does he get for it? People telling him he's wrong that have a grade 9 science credit. What does he get from truckers? People tell him he has no idea what he's talking about. What does Nurse Cat get? Fat jokes. What do other doctors get? Hatred and I know where you live tweets. And I just want to tell everybody and take this moment before we let you go, Doc. These are heroes. These are people that have dedicated their educational, personal, and professional lives to treating human beings for the sake of the betterment of society. So when you get sick with COVID or without, I want you to remember this hour and 17 that this man just gave you, the best of his information with current dates, current information, unbiased, to be able to help you make a decision to not just help us get rid of what we're dealing with, but to save your fucking life. That's why he's here. That's why nurses, doctors, epidemiologists, virologists, surgeons, respirologists, that's what they're, and here's the crazy part, Doc. You're one of the very few people, we've got a bunch of different people, doctors, nurses. I've asked so many of them to come on. 95% of them won't because of the hatred that they've been receiving. They're exhausted by it.
That's understandable, though.
But I just want to take time to encourage everybody to just shut up. Just support. Just shut up and support, because if you do not have the same certification as a physician or someone who's entitled to talk about it, you don't matter. And everything you're showing us from Google, we know is bullshit. We've been through it all time and time and time and time and time again. So try to be nice, because there's going to be a point where you walk into Dr. Mario's office and you go, save me. And he's going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And what I would tell people is, I know where they're, they're kind of mistrust in certain people, and all kind of components of COVID. But, and we talked about this before, I just want to let people know that there are a lot of kind of physicians and health professionals like myself who, again, call it like it is for the most part. And when we see government, pharma, whatever, things we disagree with, we call them out, right? We are not, how many times have we been called a sheep through all this? I'm happy to criticize just about anything at any time. And if there's a vaccine that doesn't work, if there's a policy we disagree with, we call it out, right? There's the majority of us are like that. We're loud, right? We're fairly like independent thinkers for the most part. And I know, it's easy to gravitate, if someone doesn't want to get vaxxed and they don't take it seriously, it's easy for them to gravitate to the 5 individuals in Ontario right now who are advocating against mandates and vaccines and that. But, rather than focus on physicians who have fairly questionable past, and I'll leave it at that, I won't go into any more details, know that there are actually thousands of other physicians who are in favor of this vaccine, taking this seriously, and take comfort in the fact that if there was something that needed to be criticized with again, government intervention, the studies on the vaccine, that there are thousands of us who would call those out, and you would see policy changed to reflect that. But we don't change policy based on 5 to 10 individuals who, yes, are MDs, but I'm not.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people
realize
that they're humans.
COVID. I'm not trusting them after COVID.
I don't think a lot of people don't remember they're humans, and they're fallible. There are fallible humans in every profession.
But fallibility also includes the people who aren't that smart and the people who aren't vaccinated because they're afraid. So I think we need to be a little, I don't know. I think a bit of empathy.
Dr. Mario Elia, family physician down in London, at Super Mario Elia is where you can find him on Twitter. I found the tweet that you put out. I thought that a good way to end with this is you put this out. We don't need additional restrictions in Ontario right now. And really cool to hear you say that, because I know there's a lot of people that are jumping the gun. We need strong messaging for the next 2 weeks directing us to actually following existing rules, get tested for symptoms immediately, even if vaccinated. People need to understand our complacent honeymoon is over. Doc, thank you for all of your time, your expertise, and your patience. I mean that in like patience and patience. And more importantly, if you get any hate tweets from people, send them to me, because I will end them.
We do it well.
I surprisingly don't get a number of hate. I don't know why, because I know
you're too smart.
I don't get a lot of hate tweets, thankfully. No,
because you're nice.
I think they don't care enough about me. So yeah,
it's because you're a nice guy.
Thank you for taking the shield on all the hate tweets. But
I love it.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks, Doc. We'll talk to you soon. Dr. Mario Elia. What a guy, man. I love talking to that
He's
guy.
So cool.
I enjoy his honesty. I do.
Yep.
Because everybody else that's worried about the pandemic and the new wave, because we were talking about it on. I said, "Is this the 5th wave?" He goes, "5th bump for sure. We got the 5th bump." And
I used to mean something entirely different when I was younger, but go ahead. Wow, you had the 3rd bump. Just give me the fucking 5th bump.
You must have been awful on that.
Yeah, he was.
Oh,
Can you imagine?
But like, dude, just like
5 lines in, James.
Wow. And he touched on
his penis.
Do you want to? Sorry, did you just want to stop talking about it and get into coke and penises? Is that what you want to do? We can if you want.
Like, this isn't the show. Come on, go ahead.
Yeah, you're right.
Hour and 24 minutes of COVID. That's
Can we just have 2 minutes of penises?
I'll do that. We don't have to do that all the time, but I'm glad we do it, and I'm glad he takes the time to actually do that with us, because I think it's important. And as cynical as the 4 of us can be, I think we have to realize, James pointed it out earlier, there are people that don't necessarily agree with all of us, that do listen, and
Who are they?
they're out there. Trust me. I
many?
get the odd
I know.
note,
I'm kidding.
Pretty sure
Yeah.
I blocked them.
and that's why will I keep bringing up the blocking thing?
Fuck them.
I blocked like 4 people today already. It's been a big day. It's been a really big day.
I can't get over the empathy tank. The size of the empathy tank on that doctor is
Massive.
insane.
If I'm him, the first person that comes through my door and is like, I'm not vaccinated, my parents have cancer, they're both in the hospital, so fuck the health system.
yeah, sorry about that, by the way.
Go get another doctor, shithead. Like,
yeah, sorry.
seriously.
I snapped when he said that.
Hippocracy
I don't believe in
oath
that
instead of
Hippocratic
the-
oath crap. No, I
You know,
don't.
my mom died slowly of cancer in the hospital. I could just imagine leaving her there to die alone because I was a selfish piece of shit, and that's why I kind of went a little nuts there. But fuck that guy.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong, Ryan. It's some of these stories are really hard to hear because it just doesn't. The answer is so simple, right? Just get over yourself, right?
You know, the funny thing was, I read today this fucking, and then we posted an article on it, and it was something we were talking about in our DMs as we were kind of getting ready for the show. Disinformation and the effort to fucking keep people unvaccinated. And we broke it down, and you can go read about it at deanblundell.com. The title of the article, it's fucking fascinating, and it speeds into this. YouTuber blows the top off anti-vaccine paid disinformation campaigns and who's behind them. This dude is named Leo. I can't pronounce his last name. He's French. He's got like 1.5 million YouTube subscribers. And the fascinating part of this story was what went into and goes into disinformation and misinformation. And it's really, really simple. This is how it works. Foreign governments and religious organizations fund PR companies run by shitty people who value money over accuracy of public health. The PR company then takes that money to pay themselves. They take 50%, and then they give the other to influencers, bloggers, media personalities to create content questioning the validity of vaccines, mask, COVID, and other alternative therapeutics. The PR company is very vague about the information, very specific about making sure the influencer / writer, blogger delivers exactly directed, no money. They don't get it if they don't do as told. They target thousands of influencers worldwide with similar messaging at the same time to fool dumb fucks who don't look for source material into sharing their messaging as news, and it works. Russian and Chinese nationals, as well as a lot of religious / pro-life evangelical terrorists, do the same thing. And why I found this interesting is because they were saying that this space that we occupy, the blog / podcast space and Facebook, is like 100% responsible for this messaging. And what happens and has been happening, and this guy kind of brought it out into the open when he said, here's what they ask you to do. They say, in his case, they gave him 2,000 euros, so $2,000. What he had to do was post a series of articles that were given to him by this PR company called Phase, Fazze. Phase takes large sums of money from the Chinese government, from pro-life, anti-vaccine, evangelical, and Russian government entities. And then they are charged with the opportunity to go and captain different people like us in this space to be able to put forward information according to their talking points that's 100% bullshit. And the only reason they want to do it isn't to misinform, it's to disinform. It's to cause, in the Chinese national / Russians case, it's to create chaos in another country. With the pro-life and the evangelical thing, it's to stop other Christians from getting vaccinated. That accounts for 100% of the disinformation that we see online. Because what happens is they know who to give it to. They pay people to put it out. They put it out. Everybody starts asking questions and using it as justification for not getting vaccinated. And it is fucking wild because I read the story. I went back and I looked at some of the emails we get for things called sponsored posts. This has been, and I haven't said anything for months. This has been going on with us
you
for
mentioned
a year,
this
at least.
To me within the last couple of months, that before this even came up, and you said don't fucking say anything to me because I'm the one that spills the beans all the time.
Right. And I wouldn't tell you exactly what it was about, but I said we get lots of requests.
Yeah.
Some of these requests, and I actually have them here. We've had 1,121 requests in the last 18 months for sponsored posts for content that these people put out. Of those sponsored post requests, those 1,000 plus, about 80% have been with organizations that work directly with foreign governments, lobby groups, for the express purposes of putting out disinformation, and they pay people for it. So here's the rub. They come to us, as they have, and I'll show you the proof, and they say, here's 10 grand. We want you to write an article that roughly has something to do with this, or talk about this in your podcast, but we'll give you $10,000. Do you know how much money that is to a startup? A fucking ton. So we've never taken a fucking dime, to the point where we've actually followed this down a few rabbit holes, and it always comes back to the same groups: religious lobby, foreign governments, PR agencies.
I'm glad I didn't get any of those emails.
Here's proof. This is from someone named Una Ruse. She's emailed me 200 times.
Oh.
I can't figure out where this is from, but I know this is foreign government related, because this group works with the Chinese government. They work with the Russian government. They actually work with the Iranian government as well. She sent this to me recently, November 1st. Hey there, just a quick follow-up in case you missed my email. Here it is again. My name is Una. I'm writing on behalf of Intelligence. We're a digital agency providing content and content placement for our clients. Is your website open to sponsored posts? We would like to publish some articles in accordance with your blog niche, audience, and editorial calendar. Please let me know if this is something we can arrange. We didn't reply. This is another one. This is from Marie. This is all in the last week. We've clients looking to follow up sponsored posts and paid guest post placements. Guess who those paid guests are? People that actually like to talk about things that aren't real, or lies, or other governmental problems, or framing things for other countries that aren't true. They want to know the price. We've literally quoted people the price of one post, 20 grand, 30 grand, and they've said, no problem. And then we've been at the door where we've had to go, so do we do it or not? Because we need the money. And the answer's been 100% fuck no. Because the second we start doing that, it's over.
Oh, yeah.
And here's the thing. I can tell you certain mainstream media organizations that do this now. That are in bed with,
blatantly do it,
misinformation companies like FaZe, F-A-Z-Z-E, that get paid massive sums of money on behalf of the Chinese government, the Russian government, the Iranian government, the Egyptian government, the Saudi government, the American government, the Thai government. Any government that has serious PR issues has their hands balls deep in Canadian media, paying people for these kinds of op-eds. That is what we're talking about, and that is where this misinformation comes.
Have you noticed
paid for it?
Have you noticed in print media, especially, that like 80% of the shit you read is an op-ed now? There's no just staff news writers anymore, just doing local news stories with zero commentary. Everything's a fucking op-ed now
because they get paid.
Yeah, well, and all these emails that you showed us today, like we saw these earlier before the show, and this is why I went nuts and said, holy shit. Like, we read the story from this FaZe thing, and these are all worded exactly like this is exactly the same fucking thing. It's like, holy shit.
I've actually seen those emails.
Crazy.
I've always just thought they were spam.
You know what I find strange about them is that I have some experience in the clandestine, can you do something for this person kind of stuff. I can't really. It's one of those things. But I've never seen. It's hard to explain. I've been approached before to do stories in a certain way. But what I'm surprised about is the brazenness of, here's my email address, here's my company name. And it makes me feel I've never.
Does look like a front though. Some of the names though, doesn't it?
Of course, it all looks like fronts, but like it is easy to find what Dean's talking about. What he's referring to, it's easy to find the information of the trail of how it goes from Russia to Acme PR Group to Torstar or something like that, right?
Oh yeah.
This type of thing, and I know this because I know people that have actually done this. I know people that have been approached several times. It's usually done by telephone, for one thing. It's usually not done by anybody who can identify themselves with any company at all, right? And it's usually they're an intermediary of possibly another intermediary. So it would start at like a Chinese state-owned company, and then it would go to like an intermediary, and then another one, and then the journalist. Russia is a good example of that happening. And then, of course, it's used by their political rivals to say now every piece of information is Russian disinformation. The interesting thing is that they're doing what the Americans have been doing since World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been interfering in elections since World War II and sending propaganda units over to like write fake stories in places like Guatemala and places like that. So they're just kind of, the rest of the world is catching up to tactics that have been used by the Americans for.
Are
like,
you saying
more
we're
than
not
100
the good guys?
Well, and this is the funny part. A lot of
Saying
people,
there are no good guys.
a lot of people think when they think, oh, spies and Russian agents
Right.
and Chinese agents, they think like the fantastical shit you see in movies. It's not. It's this. This is exactly what you get those agents doing, and
Spy
it's
blogging.
boring. It
But
is.
it's like volume or something.
Crazy.
It's just
How
a
many
volume game.
people in
It is.
Canada, how many blogs, podcasts do you think have taken money? Like
Oh
just
my
a
God.
rough number, Dean.
I would say 80%.
What?
You think?
Come
you think?
on.
You think?
Maybe
You
No,
think?
I was gonna say like 20.
You think?
No,
So, you
fuck,
think?
dude.
You think somebody like
No,
like
and a
Chris
lot of
Guy-
people, a lot of these people, see, we're tuned into it, so we know what it is, right? Do you know how many people aren't? Almost all of them. Like
Yeah.
you hear about compromat or people being used as incidental spies and not knowing it. Like the whole Trump thing kind of outed that whole mess, right? Where it's like, hey, this Russian guy is friends with this guy and he uses this
Yeah.
guy for things, but this guy has no idea. He just thinks they're buddies. That's what these people are doing. They're like, guy, we just want to contribute to what you're doing. We just want to be part of your universe. I've heard it all. I've heard it. We just want, and you're like, yeah, but you're associated with these guys. And they're like, no, don't worry about it. It's got nothing to do with it. We just think all parts should be represented. And you're like, yeah, we do a pretty good job of that. So I'm not really interested in representing that part. And they go, this is always the same conversation. They say, what if we gave you 25 G's? And you're like, fuck, no. But I'm keyed into it. You have
You're
the
a better
same
person than
conversation.
me.
You have that same conversation. And trust me, if any government wanted to go through, if our government said we want to go through your books to make sure you're not taking money, feel free.
Yeah.
I mean, there ain't nothing there. But
this
the truth,
this
I'll
raises that
blog
question
whatever
I
the
have
hell
about.
you want for 25 grand.
I was gonna
Well,
say,
this is the question that I've raised about like guys like Chris Guy.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't imagine an amount of money that it would take for me to stand there and say the shit, because a lot of these people don't believe the shit they say. They just do it for the grift. But I don't know how much I could do or how far I could go, and I don't know what the price would be.
All right. How much
To
more
be
do
able
we
to-
want to say to make me look bad? I mean, seriously.
No, seriously, like think
really
about
just
it. Like
better to
like
let you talk, Lachlan.
oh, you're talking.
I wouldn't. I'm with you, Ryan. I mean, I'm always shocked at. I always want to know whether or not they believe the shit coming out of them.
Yeah.
Like, really? Do you really? Like, come on, Chris.
You know,
come
but-
on,
Yeah,
Mr.
Chris Guy's not the right.
Guy.
I don't know. Chris
you-
Guy's the best example, but what we started this segment on, that type of thing, I don't think people look at it in any way other than, oh, I'll write 600 words on why the Russian military is the best trained in the world, and take my $4,000 and off I go.
Well, like you said though, Dean, you said that the evangelicals have a big hand in this as well. So you look at, like, take it back pre-internet. Look at guys like Pat Robertson, those fucking idiots on TV. Is that what motivates these? Because those guys, you think they're just batshit, but is it just the money? Like they're getting
James,
paid
Just
by-
that's a great
Yes.
question. That's Jamesy. That's more direct, right?
Greed-
like what we're
greed
talking
and-
about is, and Locke, he jokes around about it. 20 grand to a blogger or writer, 50 grand or $5,000.
It's a lot.
That
of money.
is a lot
There's
of
a lot of
fucking money
cash.
to not ask any questions,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Just because that's what comes with this too.
Please
give you the
ignore
stuff,
the
you
fact
put it
that
up,
I'm going
don't
to the
ask any
keg
questions.
this weekend.
Yeah, and I guess on the lower end, you're right. Like if it's just like a blog, yeah, and they're probably
Yeah.
thinking that's how they would justify it. Oh, it's just a blog post. It's
Well,
just a little ad on the corner of my,
Well,
but
my
Ryan,
blog site.
I
They
mean,
also
all-
overpay though. Let's
Yeah.
not be
all
ridiculous about it. They
kidding
paid for
aside,
like
all
Yeah.
kidding aside, you're dealing with, and again, we've had this conversation before. I hate to sound like a broken record, but there are people out there that they legitimately, and it was so hard for me to comprehend this, and it still is to a certain degree. I still have trouble with it, even though I'm a cynical fuck. There are people out there that don't fucking care what you think. They just don't. And all they care about is themselves. That narcissistic tendency it runs through a lot of people. Like,
But
I
a
have
lot
a
of people
very
are just
close
useful
friend that has a
idiots, though, dude.
sister that is stealing from her mother.
Yeah, I know, but
She's going into her mother's home,
yeah,
and everyone knows it's her.
Yeah.
And she's robbing her own mother. Like, I can't
Not
even
ideal.
wrap my fucking head around
Well, hold
that.
on.
yeah, but
How
she
rich is
knows
her
what
mom?
she's doing.
How rich
She
is her mom?
exactly, probably very rich. What James
No.
said is true. Useful idiots. Like that's
Yeah,
what you're
they're
forgetting.
useful
Is it?
They're all trailer trash, and they're stealing from each other.
But
It's-
if we're talking about the media stuff, they're useful idiots. Like a lot of people probably have an editor. Not a lot of people, but there's probably editors out there who manage like 3 or 4 writers. And the 3 or 4 writers have no idea that their editor has been bought and paid for it. And they just write the stories that the editor tells them to write. So they're not saying like, well, why are we shining a good spotlight on China's environmental record? They just do it, right? They just do their work. It's their work.
Yeah, because
a lot
they
of
want a
people
job.
are
You're right.
also a lot of people are also going into work every day knowing they're working for a questionably immoral company. We kind of touched on this. I don't even if you remember that, because you and I were both pretty out of it on that Blackballed podcast we did on the weekend. I think I went into a little bit. I remember years ago it was a hard lesson for me. You have those personality tests that you do. What are those things called, Dean?
They're called personality tests.
Personality identifiers. Yeah.
Yeah. The boxes, and you're in different boxes. There's a name for them. Fuck.
I'll look it up.
I used to do those all the time when I was applying for these management jobs, and I kept getting passed up for these jobs, right? And I have an ego. I was like, I'm fucking the best guy for this job. Why is that fucking guy getting this job? And then I realized after a while, they don't want me. I'm way too loyal. When it comes back on my personality test, I'm not going to be that guy. I am going to stick up for the little guy. I'm not going to be able to fuck somebody over and fire them just before Christmas, right? Like, it's just not going to happen. And the guys that they put in these roles in these companies, these have questionable morals, right? Like, that's why you end up with these bosses that in companies where you're like, how did that guy get that job? He got that job because they know he's a fucking asshole and he'll do the shit that they want him to do. And they looked at me and they went, we're not hiring that guy. He's going to be a problem.
Who's that moral? Who let the moral compass in?
And I know that makes me sound like I'm I do have a bit of an ego, and I understand that.
No, you're 100% right. James and I are both agreeing with you. Yeah, we're both agreeing with you.
But I don't want to sound egotistical when I say this.
Well, you do anyway.
I got passed up for jobs I know that because I failed their personality test, they wanted a scumbag.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude,
exactly.
My very first job was at a Granada. Do you guys remember Granada?
No.
They leased stereos and things like that.
Yeah.
I walked in and I got the job or whatever because I fucking have a silver tongue during interviews and whatever. So I go in, and the very first day he sells to this lady, and he's like, "You know what I did there?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "I spot a person on disability, and I took her for everything she's got, and that's the name of the game, Jamesy." And he starts going like this to his fucking little mustache, and I was like, "Yeah, I quit. I'll see you later."
Did you really? You quit right there?
I
You
quit
walked
right on
right
the
out?
spot. I was like, "Fuck this!" Like, he's like, the name of the game is to milk the credit of people who can't afford it.
Oh
That's the
my
name of the game.
God! Like, if you to sell cars.
Yeah, you have to
I'm
be basically a
so
complete
thorough.
fucking degenerate. Yeah, totally. And that's, you bring up a great point. There's the useful idiot, and then there's the person you're talking about that makes it all the way to the top because
the idiot pile.
other people with character flaws look at that guy and go, is he fucked? Yeah, that's our guy. We want the fucked guy. We don't want the guy who isn't fucked, has an ounce of self-respect, and enjoys sleeping in his own brain at night. We want the guy who's a fucking mental midget who will sell his own child for a bite to eat.
All the
That's
resumes
what
where they come back as psychopaths, leave them on the table. The rest of them, put them in the shredder. Fuck it.
And we're joking, but this happens. It
All the time.
happens in corporate America, corporate Canada. This is something I've witnessed in my business.
Do you guys remember that documentary, The Corporation, and they gave it a psychoanalysis and it came back psychopath?
Yeah.
Like if you gave a corporation and the decisions they make and the rules that they work within, it comes back psychopath.
Oh, without question. Without question. I mean, you look at what happened with Bell last year when they got rid of a bunch of people and they took all the money from the government. They were supposed to pay those people. Then they fired them anyway. And you're like,
using mental
what
health
a
as their
psycho
shield.
does.
Using mental health as their shield.
Right.
You're the
Exactly.
psychopath. Like,
Hey, speaking of psycho, can I ask you guys a serious question about psychoses? Because I'm not sure if this is psychotic, but I can tell you that I found it interesting. And the reason why I found it interesting, because I thought to myself, I've never seen anybody do this. And I don't know if you have to be a psycho or if you have to have completely given up. But what gets into someone that does shots of ranch dressing in a Walmart parking lot?
I can't even watch
Anyone?
it.
maybe you
Have
should
you
put
seen
vodka
this?
in it. You should put vodka in it.
Oh,
Have you seen
I
this?
want to throw up.
Look at this woman. So I saw this yesterday, and this is someone who's like, I don't. Are you allowed to videotape people that are just putting their groceries away?
Yeah.
Voyeurism, is that what this is called?
No.
This woman who's enormous and clearly in terrible fucking shape, and she's also got no teeth, as you can see right there. Yeah. That's that mouth with no teeth, by the way.
She left her teeth
yeah.
at home. She was in a hurry.
She knew she was going to get that sweet ranch, baby, so she didn't want no teeth.
Don't
getting
need
in the
no
way.
teeth to chew the ranch.
But you know exactly. But and it just slides right in, smooth ride, as they say.
She could feel her
No
blood
peppercorn.
sugar going down a bit.
But she's a big lady. Her arms are the size of my fucking legs. And she's putting the groceries in her car. And you know how when you're really hungry and you go grocery shopping? And
you break into like the cracker box or something.
Yeah, or like you grab an apple out of the bag of apples.
Yeah.
This broad grabbed the salad dressing and started chugging ranch.
See, that's not a
He's
tattoo.
just trying to wash down the
Awful.
babies.
Those aren't tattoos. That's
that
like
is-
hematomas going on in her arms.
Did you just say she was trying to wash down the babies?
That's right.
We paid Jimmy.
Oh, here it is.
Look at her. Look at her. This is unbelievable. I bet you I've had ranch dressing
looks kind
like
of
twice in my life. She loves the shit
I love
so
fat,
much.
I love fat guy dip, but that's not. I can't do it out of
She's
the jar like
dude,
that.
she's drinking it out of the squeeze bottle in a Walmart parking lot because she can't fucking wait to get to
The closest thing I've ever done to that is Swiss chalet gravy, and I just went like this and finished her off because
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
No,
the dipping
I'm not
sauce.
judging.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't judge. I can't judge here.
Have you
so
done
we
this?
we were at
Have
the
you done this?
sawmill.
Yes or no?
Okay,
Have
hold on.
you
I
done
gotta
this?
s-
Yes
I gotta
or
s-
no?
No, I haven't done that.
You've never drank ranch dressing? You've never had a
I've-
shot of ranch?
Okay, I've pounded gravy like James, but okay, listen
Yeah.
to me.
I'll admit to
There's a
that.
story here. Jimmy, we were getting drunk at a sawmill, and Grant and I paid him to
As one
drink
does.
an
Yeah.
entire
What else are you
bottle
gonna do there?
of the sesame seed steak sauce, and he gunned that, and I swear to God, I almost puked watching him. It was a pretty big bottle, and he dummied it at the table. I
he
gave
really?
him 10 and Grant gave him $10, so we did it for $20.
This
20
is why
bucks.
this man has problems. I don't know if you saw the podcast the other night, but I'm telling you're like at least half responsible for the condition this man is in. I swear.
Well, it's
to
okay.
God.
It's okay.
That's
Locke's
a-
in trouble with
that's
Jimmy's mom
severe.
now. It's fine.
Oh yeah, Janice is all over us now.
She mad?
By the way, go to the Cruise Twitter page and vote on whether or not I should block Janice on Facebook. That was Jimmy's.
Yeah. Yeah. She wasn't happy about the eggs and the ping pong balls.
Like,
Not at
why
all.
is this man friends
No.
with you?
I listen. Okay, on
I
that
wouldn't be
video,
able to take
did you
it. I
watch
would
the
have flown
video?
to fucking Edmonton by now and
Yeah.
been like, "That's it, Lachlan."
I watched.
You
the video.
guys
It was
watched
fucking
the video.
Funniest thing ever. Hold on, let me get the video.
Would
Okay,
you?
it's probably good
It-
content. but
It was
wasn't
funny,
good for
and he
him.
was in on it.
He was in on the whole thing.
Exactly.
He agreed to it.
How
he
hard
didn't
is it to
realize how
convince him,
bad the
Lachlan?
eggs were going to hurt.
How hard is it to convince him of things, though?
It's not.
We
For
talked
for you.
No.
we talked to him. We talked to him on Friday on Wade's podcast.
Yeah.
And that was the only complaint that he had about it was he goes, I didn't realize the ones that hit me in the back were going to hurt so much. And I got a welt on my hand too. And even the one that hit him in the face wasn't that bad, he said. And the one that, so he was fine with it. He was okay with it. So
He said he was fine, but he wasn't.
It was. I think it also had something to do with the fact there was like 100 eggs. Like,
Hey,
I think it,
first off, you guys are
What?
totally exaggerating. There was 10 eggs.
I don't know how you
I
fit
got
24
back
eggs in a 12 pack, but that was pretty impressive.
they just kept coming, and
So
he was
anyway,
like,
I
and
haven't
he
seen
was
the
like
video.
trying to.
You have the video?
Yeah, I'm uploading it right now, and
Oh,
he was
okay.
like hiding. He was like
His
hiding
mom,
in the corner.
His mom saw the video and weighed in on Sunday morning
Oh.
and was like,
And
this is not funny. It's just mean. So I'm texting
I
Jimmy
agree with
going, sort your mom out.
What's your mom?
Get her in line.
And he's like,
Candace is
I
on
don't-
off the rails.
he's like, he texts me back. He goes, I'm not phoning my mother to explain our show to him again or her again. And I'm like, I said, you got to do something. To do something, because explain to her that you knew what we were doing the whole time. Like, this is radio. I hate to pull back the curtain here, folks, but he fucking knew we were going to throw eggs at him.
Was that a
Four
Wizard of
pair
Oz
clothes
joke?
we threw out, right? and he goes, ah, damn it, just block her on Facebook. Hence the Twitter poll. And I'm like, I'm not blocking your mother on Facebook.
dude, you have to. That's the only way
You
you're going to
think
get a
so?
reprieve. Yeah,
blocked your
because the
mom.
way that you treat him, and listen, I know he's in on it. No, hang on. Let me rephrase that. The relationship that you have with Jimmy, the little person, and I've got a video to prove it. If you're a relative of his and you don't have the entire backstory, like the whole backstory about how Jimmy is
That's
involved
fair.
in these stunts, it's gonna be fucking mayhem for you for the rest of your
He
life.
puts
And
the
so
videos together.
he made this
Half
video.
These fucking ideas
You
are
haven't seen
his.
this. You haven't seen this. This is supposed to be, these guys are trying to go viral. Their morning show at 95.7 Cruise FM in Edmonton. This is all his idea. All of it.
Well,
Really?
Yeah.
ish.
Yeah. Sort
yeah.
of. But this is the, and if you watch it, can you see why this kid's mom has a problem with it? Yeah.
I don't even have to watch it. I already have a problem.
Kid,
This
he's
is the locker
47.
room. I'm Lachlan Cross. Grant. We got Jimmy down the stairwell, and this is our attempt to try to go viral.
Yeah.
What do we got here?
So it's the ping pong challenge. What you're supposed to do is he's supposed to catch one of these ping pong balls in his mouth.
If he does.
If he does, we're gonna give him a case of beer.
Okay.
All right, Jimmy, are you ready? You're just gonna throw hands at me. Okay. No. We got ping pong balls for you. Yeah. All right. And if you
You're just going to
So
throw
he's
eggs
acting?
at me.
He's acting there?
No.
catch a ping pong ball in your mouth, we'll buy you a case of beer. Okay? Show me the ping pong ball. There.
That's part of the video right there.
So it's already off to a terrible start because he's turtled after one ping pong ball, like completely turtled.
Threw him
and
right
lost
off.
his hat, but then
Yeah.
it gets worse. Look at, he can't even fucking straighten up after the ping pong ball. Here come the eggs. Right in the back.
Just stop. No consent. There's no consent there.
He set it up.
Look at that shell hanging off his hair.
Did you catch one?
Did you catch one?
Almost. Caught it with his eye. He should get bonus points for that shit.
Holy shit.
I'm saying though, the reason why he says yes to these stunts is the problem with the relationship. It's because he's like, okay, I guess so. This is like, it doesn't feel like
don't
he's
know
like.
that.
Don't you have to convince him most of the time?
No,
He's just like, yeah, dope. That's a wicked idea. Like,
No, I have berated him into other things, but not this.
He didn't think it was going to be eggs. How many did he think was going to be eggs out of the dozen?
I told him, I said, I'm bringing in 8 to 10 eggs. And he was like, okay, yeah.
Yeah. And you see the camera? See the camera down there as he's got eggs and shells on his face? He said
the best part of the video is coming up.
Okay, best part of the video is coming up. Here we go, everybody. Here we go.
That's it. That hurt. You will watch the case of beer. Wait me. I'm not cleaning this shit up.
Dude, that looks like a fish.
The Locker Room.
Brought to you by Always Plumbing and Heating.
Promo is humiliation. Look at it. It's just, like, everything is humiliation for that. Oh, I feel bad for Jimmy.
Okay, here's what I said this morning on the show. I said, listen, if Grant, you want to stand above me and throw eggs at me, we'll go do it. I'll go do it right now. Bring your mother up. Christ, if she can
let
throw
her,
eggs
let
at me,
her do
I'll
it.
sign
That
up.
would be great.
Grant, if we throw eggs at Grant, is that fun? Absolutely, I would enjoy that. But nobody, to a man, will disagree. There's just something unique about Jimmy. No matter what scenario we put him in,
of course, there's something unique about him, dude. He's
dude.
tiny.
No, it's more than that. It's the guy weighs.
It's nowhere near
200
as funny.
pounds. He's not.
Yeah,
it's not tiny.
Yeah, it would not be funny if it was anyone else.
Okay.
It would be funny, but not as funny.
Correct.
So when we do these things, a lot of time that's the default thing, and he knows that. He knows that if I stood down there,
submitted to that, I think is what you mean. He's submitted to that. That's my role. Fuck it.
That's his
Gotta be
job.
this guy.
But hold it, I'm on Lachlan's side. That's his job. I remember we used to have this guy on our show a long time ago, and he's like, I want to be taken seriously now. I want to stop doing street stuff. And I'm like, the second you start taking yourself seriously, this is the second you leave this radio station.
Yeah.
Just so you know. Oh, yeah. Because that was his gig. That's what James's gig is. James's gig is to get
the thing
hit with
is, James loves it though. Like a lot of times it's not eggs. A lot of times he's dressing up, right? Like the Halloween bit where Rented Jimmy, we dressed him up and sent him out to trick or treat with kids.
Yeah,
that's not funny if it's Grant.
That is
it's just
funny.
creepy. It's not funny if it's Locke. It's like, why are you here? I don't want you around my kids.
You're right. I get the humor behind the little person part of it. I get that, and I actually think it's neat.
Also Jimmy.
It's neat though. That's the first time in my entire life that I've actually spoken to a little person who makes fun of himself and understands that it's not a big deal. And I like that about him.
He's taken ownership of it. He could play the
small
victim
part of me
part.
that thinks I'm going to say yes to Lachlan because I guess I'm going to say yes. Like, it
and
doesn't
I
really
agree.
feel like he wants
I agree.
to, you know?
But he knows the rule. If he legitimately doesn't want to do something because he's scared, and there's lots of bits we haven't done. If he's legitimately scared about his safety or concerned for anything, he doesn't like to have his dick out. Like I wanted him to have streak things and stuff, and he won't do it. Like he will not have his penis out.
That's too much. That's too much. It's like
the guy's a stripper, Dean.
Yeah, I know, but he doesn't always go full Monty, does he? He just gets it. Yeah,
the greatest name for a midget strip bar of all time, Pinkies. Welcome to Pinkies. Like, it's just so good.
Anyway,
can I end the podcast because we're going on 2 hours now with just a quick PSA. I love ending the podcast on PSAs, by the way.
I like the PSA music.
I do too. I queued it up moments ago for this very moment, this very minute, this very second, this feature. If you're a female, attractive or not, and you happen to see O.J. Simpson in a bar, don't do what this chick did. No, that's the Milton fight. Never mind.
Wrong bar.
Don't do it this.
Did you see that?
You know what else is going to be out?
That micro
Her
expression she
brains.
made.
Did you see
Point
that?
to her own head.
She sees OJ in a bar. She's sitting there having a drink. She's like, OJ in the house. He's out, baby. He goes in for a kiss. She looks away from the camera like, he's going to fucking kill me.
Well, now that you looked away.
Watch this.
Watch
This
it again,
is
Locke.
fucking
Watch her
awesome.
face.
OJ, baby, he's out. He's out, baby. Hey.
Wow, he did. Right at the end. Wow.
What are the chances she's dead now?
Oh, yeah, she's
That's
done.
not funny.
Rest in peace.
Wow. I don't know. Like,
But, but when he's done trying to find Nicole's killer, he's going to try and find her killer next.
how bad
You know
do you have
what?
to feel about yourself? Like, to do that, like, you'd have to have, like, Jimmy level self-esteem. You know what I mean? To do something like that.
Go.
She got egged in the alley right after.
Dude, if I'm
Not like
her,
I urinated
Show
on the
people her
kid.
penis.
if I'm this chick, and I'm with OJ and he moves in for a kiss, I'm letting him kiss me. Because the last time he got turned down,
I think the first mistake is engaging with OJ in a bar when you know he killed 2 people.
look at her.
It still
Look at
might have
her
been his
face.
son that did it. Just like,
Look at her face. Watch her face right here.
no.
There it is.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
She knows.
Yeah.
She knows she's dead. She knows that she's probably in a dumpster.
She saw AC Cowan parked across the street and was like, fuck this. I ain't doing it.
In one of the new 2021 Ford Broncos.
That's right.
Holy fuck.
Eggshell white.
Talk about taking your fucking life in your own hands in a hot second.
There is a
No shit.
limit to your attempts to go viral.
You know when people like, when you scare yourself in like a haunted house or on a
Throwing
roller
eggs at a
coaster,
midget
that's
is
kind of
not
what
one
that
of 'em.
is. I'm gonna touch OJ.
Yeah, until he touches you. And then no good, no bueno, as they say.
God damn.
What happened to her? OJ met her in a bar. He went in for a kiss. She said no. You know what happens.
All that was left between them was a thin layer of black leather. They don't fit. I don't know.
Rest in peace.
Nice to see you guys today. Thanks for being here.
It was good to see you too.
That's 2
It's a lot
hours.
of fun.
It was.
That was good.
think we learned a lot.
Ott, send me a DM on Twitter and I'll get you the interview. He's been bugging us
Yeah,
about the
all
interview.
the entire show.
Yeah.
Yeah, this guy
Send
wants
me-
your cheap
just send
trick
me a
interview with
DM.
Jimmy.
I just
Follow me on
figured that was
Twitter.
Grant under a fake name.
Probably. Anyway, thanks, guys. That is Lachlan Cross from 95.7 Cruise FM in Edmonton is where you can find him every single morning, including tomorrow morning. That is James D. Fiore, Blackballed the podcast, blackballmedia.ca is where you can find him as well. At James D. Fiore on Twitter, at Lachlan Cross on Twitter, at Ryan Lindley on Twitter as well. He's the host of the Sheeple Shepherd podcast, smart podcast, him and his lovely wife, Ashley. Thanks, guys, for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank
Check
you,
out the
boys.
blogs that we went blog crazy yesterday, so make sure you check out the website, everybody.
Oh, yeah.
We went nuts
yes.
yesterday.
Tomorrow we can talk about how I wanted to climb into the screen and kill you on Friday, Ryan, because you were talking about how I don't care if they listen in on my conversations and sell me products. I was just like, what the fuck? So we'll talk
Perfect.
about that tomorrow, hopefully.
Tomorrow's show is set.
Fight about
Yeah.
it tomorrow.
Yeah, because James put out a blog about how much he wants to beat the shit out of Mark Zuckerberg, so that's cool. Lachlan blogged because he's seriously angry about the Island Boys, and Lindley's been on a heater. He's got some stuff up here about how much of a douchebag Eric Clapton is. It's a fucking great read, and Randy Hillier's anti-Semitism being one of his main tools. Anyway, great stuff. Go and check it out. Everybody's represented at DeanBlundell.com. And Locke, congrats on your first blog.
Yeah, it was great. It was really good.
Shouldn't have been the Island Boys, though. Son of a bitch.
Yeah, that's a good way to launch, actually.
Yeah, but it was
it's
Locke's
content.
drunken blog,
Drunk
so that makes
blogging.
sense.
Drunk
All right.
blogging with Locke. I
That's
love
it. It's great.
Yeah.
He wrote his
All right,
dream
boys.
down once. It was awesome. He beat
Thanks,
the shit out of somebody. It was good.
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks, boys. Talk to you
Hey,
soon.
guys.
Lachlan, James, Ryan, everybody is out ski. Like this music. I think I'm going to keep it going. Thanks, everybody. A lot of deep information there today. Deep. We went deep with information. Thanks for being part of it. Thanks to our friends at Easy Auto Financial for making this happen. Easy Auto Financial, looking for a car and financing, and you can't get either. These guys take care of everything. Go to easyautofinancial.ca. Sign up, no obligation. Again, easyautofinancial.ca. Sign up, no obligation. They're awesome. You will not regret it. If you're looking for a vehicle, easyautofinancial.ca. Ed's Fine Imports, edsfineimports.com. Go there today. Clothing for men and boys. Massive online store. I love it. I buy all my jeans there, buy all my shirts there, buy all my shoes there, buy my underwear there too. His Gitch, it's luxury branded underwear for men. You can order online if you can't get there. It's in Markham, not far from where I live. Not telling you where that is, though. But Ed's is like 5 kilometers away from my house, so I go there all the time. Have coffee with Ed. Masked. He's got a very serious policy about the masking, and he's serious. So what he wants you to do is come in, be safe, or he'll send you your stuff, including his Gitch, luxury branded underwear, boxer briefs, pouch in the front. You won't regret it. Canadian made. Go to edsfineimports.com. Order them today. And you can use promo code GITCH, and then the number 3, and you get yourself a free pair of Gaunch. Who doesn't want a free pair of Gaunch? And last but not least, domination.com, AI software for people that like to produce content. Super easy. One piece, 72 pieces, 1 hour. No, like 1 minute. It takes literally minutes to do an entire file, turn it into promos. You will love it. It's artificial intelligence for people that make content, makes your life easier, and it's free to try. Go to DMNTN today and try them out. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. I think that's it for me. I'm tired of sitting. Got to pee. So have a great day. We'll see you soon. Bye.